In all of my years of teaching, one issue comes up over and over again, namely the fundamental issue that prevents people from being able to sight read effectively. This video is going to tackle that issue big time. I'm Brenda Earl-Stokes, the owner and creator of Piano and Voice with Brenda, online resources designed for pianists, vocalists, and music teachers to give you some great material to use in your life. I have been teaching voice and piano for a long time, and I have found this issue that has become a huge pet peeve for me. The main reason I see people getting stuck in reading notation is that they are only thinking of note names and they aren't even aware of the intervals. This is the worst possible way to learn, people. In this video, I'm going to show you an approach that, although it will take a little work to learn, it will dramatically improve your capacity to read music on your instrument. Okay, pianists, this means you. When people are first trained to read music, they are taught the letter names of the notes and where they sit on the staff. So you may have learned the moniker, "Every good boy deserves fudge," for the lines of the treble clef, or "Good boys deserve fudge always" for the lines of the bass clef. I always had a lot of questions about this when I was taking piano lesson, like, where are the girls? Learning the note names is a crucial step, obviously, in being able to decode music notation. But unfortunately, a lot of people's training stops there. Now, I have always been a good sight reader, okay? So much that I kind of took it for granted. But in all my years of teaching piano, I have noticed a pattern amongst so many of my students who were struggling with sight reading. They were only reading the note names. So they were looking at the notes, they were thinking of the name of the note, and then they were playing it. So they weren't making any connections to the relationships between the notes, namely the intervals between them. When I started teaching my son piano, I started him in the old piano books from when I was little. Yes, the piano book from like 1981 when I started. It's the music tree, which I'll link below. The music tree curriculum focuses really heavily on intervals and even teaches intervallic relationships of the lines and spaces on the clefs before they even teach the note names. That's right. You're looking at intervals before you're naming any of the notes. Like, there's no "every good boy deserves fudge," okay? And it made me wonder, as I was working on this, if I owed my solid sight reading skills to this interval-rich training from when I was 4 years old. Now, when a pianist is reading complex piano music, we're not thinking of letter names. We're just not. That would be so slow to do. So instead, our eyes are following the contour of the notes, noticing whether the notes are moving up or down and by what margin they're moving. By steps, by leaps, are they staying the same? So it would be nearly impossible to learn challenging music if you were just thinking of note names. The relationship between the notes are so much more important than just their names. So let's get right into my approach at looking at music intervallically. First of all, remember that an interval is the distance between two notes. Intervals start at unisons, which is the same as a repeated note or a first, okay? And they move through seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths until they hit the octave, which is the repeated note. So an octave above C is C. You could also say that's an eighth, but in music we say an octave, okay? And you can move beyond 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, etc. Here's an important tip. When we are counting intervals, we count the first note as one. So this is different than when we are counting days or elevator floors, where we don't count the floor or the day that we're on, okay? So in this example, you'll see when we go from C here to F, we are moving up by a fourth. So we count the C as 1, the D as 2, the E as 3, and the F as 4. Once you understand this basic principle, we are ready to move on. So you wouldn't start at C and then go 1, 2, 3. This is a third. What you would actually do is start on C, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. We don't immediately need to worry about the quality of the interval. Okay, so for this particular time, we just want to recognize that the interval is a third, not that it's a major or a minor third. Okay, so naming interval qualities is for another lesson. And honestly, if you're keeping in mind the key signature and accidentals, you don't really need to be thinking about the quality of the interval. You just need to be thinking about the size of it. Believe it or not. Yeah, for singers it's different, but for piano music and for instrumental music, it's definitely, you don't need to necessarily think about the quality of the interval. First of all, it will be really helpful for you to get used to moving through the musical alphabet by thirds. Thirds are important in Western music as the staff is most obviously organized in thirds. When you move up the staff from line to line, you are moving in thirds. So G, B, D, F, A, C in the bass clef, and then up to E, G, B, D, F, A in the treble clef. All right. When you move up the staff from space to space, you are also moving in thirds. F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G. Now, since thirds are such an important piece of the puzzle, I recommend memorizing all of the possible patterns of successive thirds. Practice them from each of the notes of the scale. So A, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, B, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, C, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, D, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, E, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, F, A, C, E, G, B, D, F, G, B, D, F, A, C, E, G. Okay, now I wasn't looking at that when I read it. I just have that memorized. We want to get used to recognizing intervals as we see them. And for now, we want to just focus on identifying the size of the interval. So we don't need to worry about the quality of the interval. We just want to recognize that an interval is a third, not that it's major or minor third. Naming interval qualities is totally for another lesson. We can organize the intervals into 2 categories and 2 subcategories. First is the odd numbered intervals. These are firsts. So once again, in music, we call these unisons, thirds, fifths, sevenths, etc. Odd numbered intervals are easy to spot since they either move from line to line or space to space. And the key to mastering them is to get your eyes used to identifying which interval you're looking at. So unisons are the same note, thirds are narrow, fifths are wider, sevenths are very wide, etc. So you can see here, there's no clef, so we're not in bass clef or treble clef. It's just getting your eyes used to this is a unison, a first, so there's the same note repeated, and then here as well, and then here as well. So getting your eyeballs used to reading that. And next up is thirds. So you can see from the third line to the fourth line of this, whatever clef this is, it's a third, this is a third, and this is a third as well. Okay, even the ledger lines, everything is organized in thirds. And then going next, you can see this is wider than the third was, and getting used to seeing that and being able to say, oh yeah, a fifth, that's a fifth from this first ledger line to the second line of the staff. This is a fifth, and this is a fifth. And then as wide as we're going to get with this today, a seventh. You can sort of eyeball it and say, oh yeah, this is definitely wider than the other one. So that looks like it's a seventh to me. Okay. So getting used to the spatial differences between the notes. All right. The next one for you to look at are odd numbered intervals from space to space. So once again, you can see the unisons. It's the same note repeated. Okay. And it may take a moment for you to get used to seeing that and saying, oh yeah, that's the same note, not, oh yeah, that's a G or that's a B, okay? You see the thirds, it's a space to a space, but it's quite a narrow interval. They're very close together, as close as they could be from space to space unless they were a unison. The same with this one and this one. And then after that is fifths. You can see it's wider than the third is. Kind of get used to spotting that and observing it. And then next up, the seventh, which is the widest, okay? Our next group of intervals is the even numbered intervals. These are seconds, fourths, sixths, and eighths. And in music, we call eighths octaves, and they are written 8VE. Okay. Once again, you want to train your eye to decipher whether the interval is narrow, a second, less narrow, a fourth, wide, sixth, or very wide, octave. Remember, the goal is to be able to quickly spot these intervallic relationships. So we've got a line to a space. So even numbered intervals are going to be either a line to a space or a space to the line. Okay, so this is a line to a space, a second. You can see it's just a step up, right? There's a second, there's a second, okay? And then you've got a fourth. It's a line to a space, a line to a space. And again, you've got to get used to seeing that and kind of eyeballing and saying, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's a fourth. The sixth is wider, okay? Line to space, line to space, line to space. And then the octave is the widest. Line to space, line to space, line to space. Those are octaves. Now, next up is even numbered intervals that are space to line, okay? So the opposite. In this case, we've got the space to a line, the second, the same here, and the same here. And getting used to seeing that and connecting it to like, oh yeah, that's a step above. A step above is like a second, or a step below, okay? Then we've got the fourths here that are wider apart, but still relatively close. Then we've got the sixth. I feel like sixths are the hardest to, sixths, oh my goodness, it's hard to say that word, sixths. I feel like Cindy Brady. The sixths, I think, are the hardest to spot because it's wide, but it's not that wide. So that one might be one that's tricky to catch. And then, of course, the octaves, okay? So we've got this space is a much wider space. Now that you grasp the basic concept of intervals, it's time to put this information into action. Grab some music, literally any music. It doesn't have to be a special sight reading book or classical music, just whatever you have lying around. Something hopefully that's not impossibly difficult. Pick something easy. Take a 4-bar phrase, preferably, again, something that's not too hard, and go through the following protocol. Step 1. You're going to name the first note and play it on piano. Step 2, you're going to look at and name the interval, preferably naming it aloud, between the first note and the second note, and then you're going to play it. So if the first note is middle C and the second note is a fourth above it, you're going to play a C, say up a fourth, and you're going to play a fourth. Okay? If the next note goes from the F, let's say, and goes down a third, you're going to play the F and then say down a third and then play the D. Okay? Step 3, you're going to keep doing this a whole lot of times. This is going to take some effort and regular practice to master. Now, I know there's a ton of people out here on YouTube selling online courses saying, ooh, this is going to be so easy. This is going to be the easiest thing. You'll wake up in the morning and you'll be able to play all the music you ever wanted to play and you won't even have to practice or do anything. Now, I'm here to tell you, as somebody who's been playing music for about 40 years and teaching it for 25, if you believe that you can wake up one day and just have all of this just from watching a couple of YouTube videos, then I have a bridge to sell you or like some magic beans. This takes effort. It just does. It just is going to take some effort for you to be able to get this together. The good news is if you take the effort the way that I'm recommending, it's such a more efficient way of working. So if you're going to sit down and work on this stuff, wouldn't you like to have a plan, maybe a tried and tested true plan from a teacher who's been teaching for 25 years? So that's what I have to say about that. So I'm just going to repeat this again. Take a 4-bar phrase of music, something not too hard, and you're going to go through this protocol. Step 1, you're going to name the first note and play it. Step 2, you're going to look at and name the interval, preferably naming it aloud, between the first note and the second note, and then you're going to play the second note. Step 3, keep going. That's literally it. You are training your eyes and your brain to recognize the intervals as they come up in music. This is such a game changer, And it's such a simple concept, but there is a catch. The not sexy part of this method is that you're going to have to practice this a bunch, okay? My recommendation is that you take 5 minutes a day to work on this, like 5 minutes a day. Like while the teapot is like heating up, you could do this. Grab any music you have lying around, a songbook, a fake book, any music you have in your piano bench, and play through the melody using the protocol I gave you. Say the intervals aloud, since this will improve how well you are learning and internalizing the material. Now, as far as clefs are concerned, start with whatever clef makes sense for you. For most people, I recommend starting with the treble clef, especially since so many of my people are singers. Most vocal music is written in treble clef. That's the soprano, alto, and tenor. But if you are a bass or a trombone player or someone who is very heavily reliant on bass clef, then start there. Okay. Once you're confident with one clef, you can certainly move to the other, but I'm all about a straight line, like go to what you need first. Okay. Now, I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you. I cannot tell you how much this approach has been transformational for so many of my students, and I'm glad to be able to share this information with you. Take your time, commit to 4 bars a day, like 5 minutes max, and watch your ability to decode music improve. All right. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and leave a comment, and take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit the notifications button. For more information about my work and the online courses that have hundreds of students playing better worldwide, please check out my website. Thanks for watching. It's time to get to work.